The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was silent. Thousands of alien delegates sat in their seats, their many eyes fixed on the central platform. Today was a special day. Today marked exactly 1,000 years since the death of humanity. Ambassador Telos of the Dominion walked slowly to the speaking platform. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. His people had led the war against humans long ago. Now he stood as a hero to many species. Friends of the conquered, Telos began, his voice echoing through the massive chamber. 1,000 years ago, our ancestors faced the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known, the humans. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Even after all this time, the word human made aliens nervous. They were small creatures, Telos continued. Weak bodies, short lives. They came from a tiny blue planet called Earth in a forgotten corner of the galaxy. When we first met them, we thought they were harmless. Telos paused and looked around the hall. We were wrong. The history was well known to everyone present, but Telos told it anyway. Humans had spread fast, too fast. In just 300 years, they had colonized 200 worlds. They learned alien technology and made it better. They adapted to every environment. They bred quickly. And worst of all, they never stopped wanting more. They were hungry, Telos said. Hungry for resources, hungry for knowledge, hungry for power. They took what they wanted and asked for forgiveness later. When we tried to stop their expansion, they fought back. When we formed alliances against them, they broke those alliances apart. They were clever, too clever. The war had lasted 50 years. 12 species had joined together to stop humanity. The fighting had been brutal. Humans never surrendered. They never gave up. Even when they were losing, they found ways to hurt their enemies. In the end, Telos said, we had no choice. We did what we had to do. Everyone knew what that meant. The 12 species had combined their fleets and attacked Earth directly. They had bombarded the planet until nothing lived. They had turned the blue world into a ball of ash and fire. Then they had hunted down every human colony and done the same. The Great Purge, they called it, the necessary genocide. Today, Earth is a dead world, Telos declared. The Sol system is quarantined. Warning beacons tell all travelers to stay away, and humanity is gone forever. We are safe. The delegates applauded. They cheered. They celebrated their ancient victory over the dangerous humans. But far across the galaxy, something was happening that would change everything. The research vessel Pale Wanderer drifted through empty space near the galactic rim. Captain stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the main window. He was like Ambassador Telos, but younger and more curious. His job was to explore the unknown regions of space. Captain, said his communications officer, we are picking up a strange signal. Turned around, what kind of signal? Unknown, sir. It is coming from beyond the rim, from outside our galaxy. This was unusual. Nothing lived beyond the galactic rim. The space between galaxies was too empty, too vast. No species had ever crossed it. Show me, ordered. The signal appeared on the main screen. It was a simple pattern of sounds. At first, did not understand it. Then his translation computer began to work. What came next made his blood turn cold. We remember, we return. The message was in English, the language of the dead humans. That is impossible, whispered. Run the translation again. The computer ran it again. The result was the same. We remember, we return. Felt fear spreading through his body. Where exactly is this signal coming from? His sensor officer checked the readings 3 times before answering. Her voice was shaking. Sir, the signal is not coming from one source. It is coming from thousands of sources. They are moving toward our galaxy. Grabbed the edge of his command chair to steady himself. This could not be real. Humans were dead. They had been dead for 1,000 years. The Great Purge had killed them all. But the signals kept coming, thousands of them, all broadcasting the same message. We remember, we return. On the planet Nexus Prime, the capital of the Galactic Concord, High Arbiter received Captain's report. Was ancient, over 800 years old. His species, lived for a very long time. He had been a young soldier during the Great Purge. He remembered the humans. He remembered their determination. He remembered their rage. This must be a mistake, said to his advisors, or a trick. Perhaps some other species is using human language to frighten us. The signal patterns match old human military codes, one advisor said. Codes that were destroyed 1,000 years ago. No one else should know them. Closed his 3 eyes and thought. If humans had survived, if even a few had escaped the purge, they would be angry. Very angry. And humans were dangerous when they were angry. Send ships to investigate, ordered. But do not engage, just watch and report. In a small university on the planet, a young historian named Myra read the news reports with excitement and fear. She had spent her whole life studying humans. She had collected their books, their art, their music. Other scholars thought she was strange. Why study a dead species? But Myra had always felt that humans were special, different from any other species in the galaxy. She looked at a human painting on her wall. It showed a sunset over an ocean. The colors were beautiful. The humans who made this had been destroyed. Their entire civilization had been erased. Myra had always felt sad about this. But now, if the reports were true, some humans had survived. They were coming back, and they had been out there beyond the galaxy for 1,000 years. What had they become? The signals grew stronger every day. More and more sources appeared. The Concord's best scientists studied them and came to a terrifying conclusion. These are not small ships, they reported. Based on the signal strength, some of these vessels are several kilometers long. They are larger than anything we have ever built. When Ambassador Telos heard this news, he laughed. Impossible. Humans never had such technology. They were primitive compared to us. That was 1,000 years ago, someone reminded him. Telos stopped laughing. 1,000 years was a long time, long enough to learn, long enough to build, long enough to prepare. On the edge of the galaxy, space itself began to twist and tear. Blue light erupted from the darkness, and from that light ships began to emerge. Ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships of war, ships of vengeance. The humans were coming home. The fleet emerged from fold space like monsters rising from the deep ocean. Ship after ship appeared in the darkness, each one larger and more terrifying than the last. The conquered scout vessels watched from a safe distance, sending live images back to Nexus Prime. High Arbiter stood in the council chamber, watching the images on a massive screen. His advisors stood beside him, all of them silent with shock. The human ships were beautiful in a terrifying way. They were black as night, with blue energy flowing across their surfaces like glowing blood. The smallest ships were 1/2 kilometer long. The largest one stretched for 5 kilometers or more, and there were thousands of them. By the old gods, one advisor whispered, how is this possible? A communication signal came through. One of the human ships was broadcasting to all frequencies. A woman's voice filled the council chamber. It was calm and cold, like winter ice. This is Fleet Admiral of the Terran Ascendancy. We request an audience with the Galactic Concord. You have 12 hours to respond. Then the signal ended. Felt his old heart beating fast. The Terran Ascendancy. The humans had given themselves a new name, and they had an admiral. That meant they had a military, a large one, judging by the fleet before them. What do we do? Asked Ambassador Telos. His voice was no longer confident. Now he sounded scared. We must respond, said. We must learn what they want. But the council was in chaos. Some delegates wanted to attack immediately. Others wanted to run and hide. Others wanted to surrender. Nobody could agree on anything. While the aliens argued, the 12 hours passed. Admiral waited. When no response came, she gave a simple order. Wake the sleepers. Deep inside the largest human ship, called the Eternal Soul, something stirred. In frozen chambers, thousands of bodies began to warm. Eyes opened. Hearts started beating. Warriors who had slept for centuries were waking up. Admiral watched the awakening from her command center. She was an old woman, though she did not look it. Life extension technology had kept her alive for 847 years. She had been a child when the humans fled Earth. She remembered the fire. She remembered the screams. She remembered her mother holding her as their ship escaped into the darkness. Admiral, said General, walking up beside her. He was younger than only 300 years old. He was tall and strong, with kind eyes that hid a warrior's heart. The sleepers are awake. They are ready for orders. Nodded slowly. Good, we will need them soon. Do you think the aliens will fight? Asked. They always fight, replied, at first. The history of humanity's survival was known to every human in the fleet. 1,000 years ago, when the alien fleets came to destroy Earth, most humans died. But not all. A secret project called the Exodus Ark had been prepared for exactly this moment. 10,000 humans had boarded hidden ships and fled into the void between galaxies. The journey had been long and hard. Many died, resources ran low, hope faded, but humans did what humans always did. They survived. They found a new galaxy, empty of intelligent life. They settled on 100 worlds. They built cities and factories. They studied science and improved their technology. And they remembered. They never forgot Earth. They never forgot the fire. They never forgot the aliens who had tried to end their species. Over the centuries, humans changed. They merged with artificial intelligence, becoming smarter and faster. They extended their lives, living for hundreds of years. They improved their bodies with machines and genetic engineering. They became something more than human, yet still human at their core. The Terran ascendancy grew powerful. They conquered 3 galaxies beyond the rim. They built an empire of 900 billion souls, and through it all, they kept one promise. One day they would return home. Doctor walked through the medical bay of the Eternal Soul, checking on the awakened sleepers. She was the chief science officer of the Ascendancy, responsible for much of humanity's technological progress. She was small and gentle, with silver hair and eyes that glowed faintly blue from her neural implants. How are they? Admiral asked, appearing beside her. All healthy, replied. The long sleep did not harm them. They are ready to fight. Looked at the warriors around her. These were the sleepers, elite soldiers who had been kept frozen for centuries, waiting for this day. They were weapons of vengeance, created specifically to face the aliens. I hope we do not need them, said quietly. Looked surprised. You hope, after what the aliens did to us. His eyes grew distant. I remember Earth, I remember beauty, I remember kindness. I remember what we were before the war made us hard. Sometimes I wonder if we can ever be that way again. We can be, said, after we get justice. Justice? That was what they called it, not revenge, not destruction, justice. The aliens had committed genocide against humanity. They had to answer for that crime. The Conquered finally sent a response after 16 hours. They apologized for the delay and requested a meeting. Admiral agreed. She took a small shuttle and flew to a neutral space station where High Arbiter was waiting. When walked into the meeting room, felt true fear for the first time in centuries. Was small by human standards, but she moved with the confidence of someone who could destroy worlds. Her eyes were cold and ancient. She had seen things could not imagine. High Arbiter said, I know who you are, I know what you did. You were there when Earth burned. His body trembled. That was 1,000 years ago. I was just a soldier. I followed orders. Orders to kill children, replied. Orders to burn cities. Orders to wipe out an entire species. We had no choice, said desperately. Humanity was expanding too fast. You were taking our resources, our space. You would have conquered us all. Laughed softly. It was not a happy sound. You were afraid of what we might do, so you did worse. You committed the greatest crime in galactic history, and then you celebrated it. Every year for 1,000 years, you celebrated our death. Had no response to this. It was true. The anniversary of the Great Purge was a holiday across the conquered, a day of victory, a day of joy. What do you want? Asked. Territory, resources, we will give you anything. Leaned forward. Her eyes seemed to pierce through soul. You cannot give us what we want. You cannot give us back our world. You cannot give us back our dead. You cannot undo 1,000 years of pain. Then what? Whispered. We want answers, said. We want the names of every species, every leader, every soldier who participated in the genocide. We want them to stand trial for their crimes. We want justice. Felt a tiny bit of hope. You do not want to destroy us. Stood up. We are not like you, Arbiter. We do not commit genocide. We do not murder children. We are better than that. We have always been better than that. She walked toward the door, then stopped. But make no mistake. If you refuse our terms, if you attack us, if you force our hand, we will defend ourselves, and you have seen our fleet. You know what we can do. She left the room without looking back. Sat alone for a long time. His hands were shaking, his mind was racing. The humans had returned. They were stronger than ever, and they wanted justice. The galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Council refused to cooperate. They called Admiral's demands impossible. They said humanity had no right to judge them. They said the Great Purge was a necessary act of survival. We will not bow to terrorists, Ambassador Telos declared to the Council. We will not let these ghosts from the past threaten our civilization. We defeated them once. We will defeat them again. The Council voted for war. 12,000 warships gathered at Nexus Prime, the largest fleet in galactic history. Ships from 47 species filled the sky like angry stars. They had weapons that could crack planets. They had shields that could block nuclear fire. They were certain of victory. Admiral received news of the Council's decision without emotion. She sat in her command chair on the Eternal Soul, watching the alien fleet assemble through her sensors. They have chosen poorly, she said quietly. General stood beside her. Should we deploy the full fleet, Admiral? Shook her head. No, send one ship, just one. Blinked in surprise. One ship against 12,000. The Eternal Soul will go alone, said. Let them see what 1,000 years of evolution looks like. The Eternal Soul moved toward Nexus Prime. It was the largest ship in the human fleet, 5 kilometers long, shaped like a blade made of darkness. Blue energy rippled across its surface. It looked like something from a nightmare. The alien commanders laughed when they saw only one ship approaching. This would be easy, they thought. The humans were arrogant. They would pay for that arrogance. All ships open fire, ordered the Supreme Commander. 12,000 warships unleashed their weapons at once. Plasma beams, missile swarms, gravity bombs, and nuclear fire flew toward the Eternal Soul. The attack was powerful enough to destroy a planet. The weapons hit the human ship. Light filled the sky. The alien commanders cheered. Then the light faded. The Eternal Soul was still there, completely undamaged. Impossible, the Supreme Commander whispered. The human ship had shields unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. The shields did not just block attacks. They absorbed the energy and made the ship stronger. My turn, Admiral said softly. The Eternal Soul opened fire. What happened next would be remembered for centuries. The human ship released weapons that the aliens could not understand. Gravity waves tore through space, crushing warships like paper. Nanoswarms spread across the battlefield, eating through metal and energy shields alike. Beams of pure darkness cut through entire formations in single sweeps. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, the alien fleet was gone. 12,000 ships destroyed. millions of soldiers dead. The wreckage spread across space like a metal graveyard. The Eternal Soul had not received a single scratch. On Nexus Prime, the population watched in horror. Their greatest fleet, their mightiest warriors, destroyed by a single ship. The humans they had called primitive, the species they had tried to erase, had become gods of war. Admiral landed on Nexus Prime the next day. She came with only a small guard, walking calmly through streets filled with terrified aliens. She walked to the council chamber, where the surviving leaders waited. High Arbiter knelt on the floor. His proud posture was gone. He looked old and broken. "Please," he begged, "show mercy, we surrender." Looked at him with cold eyes. "I told you before, we are not here for destruction, we are here for justice." "We will give you anything," Telos said. His voice was shaking. "Territory, resources, technology, whatever you want." "I already told you what we want," replied. "The names of everyone responsible for the genocide. They will stand trial. They will answer for their crimes." "And if they are found guilty," asked, "then they will face punishment. Fair punishment, not genocide, not extinction. We will not become what you were." The aliens could not believe what they were hearing. They had expected the humans to be monsters. They had expected revenge, fire, and death. Instead, the humans wanted trials, laws, justice. Doctor activated a massive holographic display in the center of the chamber. Images began to appear. Images of Earth. Images of the Great Purge. "We have records," explained. "Complete records of what happened 1,000 years ago. We saved everything, every attack, every bombing, every death." The images showed human cities burning. They showed children running from alien soldiers. They showed families huddled together as bombs fell from the sky. They showed the last moments of billions of innocent people. The aliens watched in silence. Many of them had never seen these images before. Their governments had hidden the truth, showing the purge as a clean military victory. Now they saw what it really was: murder, genocide, horror. "This is what you celebrated," said. "Every year for 1,000 years, you celebrated this. You gave medals to the soldiers who killed our children. You built monuments to the commanders who burned our cities. You taught your children that this was victory." Tears fell from many alien eyes. Not all of them had known. Not all of them had supported it. But they had all benefited from it. They had all lived in a galaxy without humans, without the competition, without the fear. "We will broadcast this to every world," continued. "Every species will see the truth. They will see what was done in their name." Within days, the archive was spreading across the galaxy. Billions of aliens watched the recordings. They saw the screams. They saw the fire. They saw the death. Many were horrified. Many were ashamed. Some still defended the purge, but they were growing fewer. On the planet, young historian Myra watched the broadcasts with tears streaming down her face. She had studied humans her whole life. She had known they were special, but she had never truly understood their pain until now. She made a decision. She would find a way to contact the humans. She would try to build a bridge between the species. She would try to help heal the wounds. Myra sent a secret message to the human fleet, asking to speak with someone in authority. To her surprise, she received a response from General himself. "You are the historian who studies our kind," said through the communication screen. "I have read your work. You tried to preserve our memory when others wanted to forget." "I always believed you were important," Myra said. "I always believed the purge was wrong." Nodded slowly. "There were others like you, species who opposed the genocide, leaders who tried to stop it. They were punished by the conquered. Some were killed, others were exiled." "What will happen to them?" Myra asked. "They will be honored," replied. "They will receive our thanks and our technology. They proved that not all aliens are our enemies. They proved that there is good in this galaxy." Myra felt hope for the first time in days. Then there is a chance for peace, real peace. was quiet for a moment. That depends on what happens next. The guilty must face justice, but after that, yes, there can be peace. We did not come back to rule this galaxy. We came back to close old wounds. And to open new ones, Myra asked softly. Smiled sadly. Some wounds must be opened before they can heal properly. The lies your people told themselves for 1,000 years were like poison. We are cutting out that poison. It will hurt, but it is necessary. On the Eternal Soul, Admiral stood alone in her private quarters. She looked out the window at the stars. So many stars, so many worlds, so much history. She thought about her mother who had died centuries ago. She thought about Earth, which she had seen burn. She thought about the long years of exile, the struggle to survive, the determination to return. We made it, Mother, she whispered to the stars. We came home, and we are stronger than ever. But even as she spoke, knew their work was not finished. Justice was only the first step. The harder part would come next. Forgiveness, understanding, building something new from the ashes of the old. She hoped they were ready for it. The trials began on neutral ground. The humans built great courtrooms on space stations between worlds, places where no species had advantage. Every trial was broadcast across the galaxy. Billions watched as their leaders faced judgment for crimes committed 1,000 years ago. Admiral chose not to lead the trials herself. She appointed judges from many backgrounds, including aliens who had opposed the Great Purge long ago. The message was clear. This was not revenge. This was law. They were tried first. They had led the genocide. Their commanders had given the orders to burn Earth. Their soldiers had hunted down human colonies and destroyed them without mercy. Ambassador Telos stood before the court. He was no longer proud. He looked tired and afraid. How do you answer the charges against your species? The chief judge asked. Telos lowered his head. We are guilty. We did what the evidence shows. We cannot deny it. The courtroom was silent. Everyone had expected them to make excuses to justify their actions. Instead, Telos simply admitted the truth. My people were afraid, Telos continued. Humans were growing too fast. We thought if we did not stop you, you would consume everything. We told ourselves it was survival. We told ourselves we had no choice. He paused. We were wrong. There is always a choice. We chose murder. The judges deliberated for 3 days. When they returned, the chief judge read the verdict. They are found guilty of genocide against humanity. However, we recognize that this crime was committed by a previous generation. The living did not personally kill any humans. Therefore, our punishment will be measured. They would not be destroyed, but their military fleet would be dismantled. They would be forbidden from space travel for 500 years. They would be confined to their home system, watched by human patrols. They would have time to reflect on what their ancestors had done. Telos wept when he heard the verdict. He had expected death. He had expected the destruction of his world. Instead, the humans gave his species a chance to change. Why, he asked Admiral after the trial, why not destroy us? We destroyed you. Looked at him with eyes that held 1,000 years of pain. Because we remember what we were. Before the purge, humans believed in justice, not vengeance. We believed in second chances. We believed in the possibility of change. She paused. If we destroy you, we become you. We lose ourselves. Our ancestors did not survive, so we could become monsters. Other species faced trial after each judgment was different based on their role in the genocide. They had provided intelligence to the attackers. They had helped locate human colonies, but they had not directly killed anyone. Historian Myra spoke in their defense. My people made a terrible mistake, Myra told the court. But we did not fire the weapons. We did not drop the bombs. Many have spent centuries regretting our actions. Please show us mercy. General spoke for the humans. They have shown remorse. They have preserved human history and culture when others wanted to forget. This historian before us has dedicated her life to our memory. We recommend a fine, not imprisonment. We recommend partnership, not punishment. They were ordered to pay heavy reparations. They would help rebuild human monuments on Earth. They would teach their children the true history of the Purge, but they were otherwise free. The collective was not so fortunate. They had been enthusiastic participants in the genocide. Their soldiers had hunted humans for sport. Their commanders had competed to see who could kill the most. They had taken trophies from human bodies. Evidence of their crimes filled the courtroom. Even other aliens looked sick as they watched the recordings. They had been cruel beyond necessity. They had enjoyed the killing. The leaders were executed. Their military caste was dissolved. Their weapons were destroyed. They would never again have the power to commit such horrors. Not all humans agreed with these measured punishments. Commander led a faction that wanted harsher judgment. They killed billions of us, argued in a meeting with Admiral. They burned our children, they erased our civilization, and we give them fines, we give them travel bans. This is weakness. Faced him calmly. What would you have us do, Commander? Eye for an eye, said. They destroyed Earth. We destroy their worlds, they killed our species. We kill theirs, true justice. That is not justice, replied. That is revenge. There is a difference. Our people demand revenge. Our people demand healing, corrected. They demand closure. They demand to see the guilty punished. We are doing that, but genocide in return, that would poison our souls for another 1,000 years. General stepped forward. I agree with the Admiral. Our ancestors survived the Purge because they believed in something greater than vengeance. They believed in humanity, not just our species but the concept, kindness, mercy, hope. If we abandon those things now, we betray everyone who died for us. Commander was not convinced, but he was outnumbered. The trials continued as planned. Doctor presented evidence that changed many minds. She showed records of aliens who had opposed the genocide, a scientist who had tried to warn humans about the coming attack, a politician who had argued against the Purge and been executed for treason, a captain who had refused to fire on human children and been dishonored. These individuals proved that not all aliens supported the genocide, told the court. They risked everything to do what was right. Some died for their beliefs. We wish to honor them. The Ascendancy created a monument on Earth listing every alien who had opposed the Purge. Their descendants were invited to human space. They received technology and resources. They became partners instead of enemies. Historian Myra was invited to visit the Eternal Soul. She walked through the great ship with wonder in her eyes. Everything was so advanced, so beautiful, and yet she could see touches of old Earth everywhere. Paintings, music, books. The humans had carried their culture with them through 1,000 years of exile. You preserved everything, Myra said to Doctor. We had to, replied. Our culture was all we had left. Without it, we would have been just another species. With it, we remained human. What does that mean to you, being human? Thought for a moment. It means never giving up. It means adapting to anything. It means creating beauty even in darkness. It means loving deeply and hating slowly. She smiled. It means being stubborn enough to survive extinction and kind enough not to inflict it on others. Myra felt tears in her eyes. I wish my people could learn from you. They will, said. That is why we came back, not just for justice, but to teach, to share, to build something better together. As the trials neared their end, Admiral received news that troubled her. The scouts she had sent beyond the galactic rim reported strange movements. Something was following them, something vast and dark. She called a meeting with her senior officers. The Void Collective, she said grimly. They are closer than we thought. General nodded. This changes our timeline. We cannot spend years on trials and punishment. We need allies. We need them now. The aliens are not ready, Commander said. They are weak, They are afraid. They will be useless against the void. Then we make them ready, replied. We did not return just for justice. We returned because a storm is coming. A storm that will destroy everything, human and alien alike. If we stand alone, we die. If we stand together, we might survive. She looked at the stars through the window. Somewhere out there, in the darkness between galaxies, an enemy waited. An enemy that made the Great Purge look like a children's game. The real war was just beginning. 1 year had passed since the Terran ascendancy returned to the galaxy. The trials were over. Justice had been served. Old wounds were beginning to heal, but Admiral knew that peace was only temporary. She stood before the reformed Galactic Council. The chamber looked different now. Human delegates sat among the aliens. Flags of many species hung from the walls. It was no longer the Galactic Concord. It was something new, something united. I have called this meeting to share difficult news, began. Many of you have wondered why we returned now after 1,000 years. You thought it was for revenge. It was not. She paused. We returned because something is coming, something that threatens all life in this galaxy. The chamber grew quiet. Every eye was fixed on the human admiral. Beyond the galactic rim, in the darkness between galaxies, there is an enemy. We call them the Void Collective. They are a machine intelligence from another dimension. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They consume organic life like fire consumes wood. Holographic images appeared in the center of the chamber. They showed massive structures floating in empty space. Ships made of black metal, kilometers wide, moving in perfect formation. And worlds, dead worlds, planets that had once held life, now nothing but ash and stone. We have fought them for 500 years, continued. We have won battles, we have lost battles, but they keep coming. They are endless. They are patient. And now they have found this galaxy. The aliens looked at each other with fear. After everything that had happened, after the trials and the shame and the punishment, now they faced extinction from another source. High Arbiter stood slowly. He was old and tired, but his voice was strong. What do you ask of us? Met his eyes. We could have destroyed you. We chose not to. Now we ask you to stand with us. Not as servants, not as slaves, as allies, as partners, as equals in a war for survival. The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouted at each other. Some wanted to flee, some wanted to fight, some wanted to surrender to the void and hope for mercy. General stepped forward and raised his hand. The chamber fell silent. I know you are afraid, said. We were afraid too when we first encountered the void, but fear does not save lives. Action does. Unity does. He looked around the room. 1,000 years ago you united to destroy humanity. Today I ask you to unite again, not for destruction, for survival, for the future of all living things. Historian Myra rose from her seat. Her voice was small but clear. My people participated in the genocide. We have lived with that shame for 1,000 years. Now we have a chance to do better. A chance to fight alongside humans instead of against them. I say we take it. One by one, other delegates stood and voiced their support. Not all of them. Some species still feared and hated humanity. Some refused to fight alongside their former victims. But most understood the truth. Against the Void Collective, there were no old enemies. There was only life and death. The United Galactic Defense Force was formed. General was named its first commander. Ships from every species gathered together, training under human guidance. Alien soldiers learned to use human weapons. Human officers learned to work with alien troops. Doctor led a project to share human technology with the allied species. Advanced shields, gravity weapons, neural implants, medical technology that could extend life and heal terrible wounds. The aliens were amazed by what humanity had created in 1,000 years of exile. How did you advance so far? Asked the scientist. Smiled sadly. Necessity, desperation, and a very long time to work. She showed him the records of early human exile, the struggles, the failures, the deaths. We lost millions of people before we found our way. We made every mistake possible. We learned from all of them. You could have kept this technology for yourselves, the scientists said. You could have ruled the galaxy with it. We could have, agreed. But that would make us conquerors. We did not survive extinction to become what we once feared. On Earth, the terraforming process continued. Human engineers worked to heal the damage done 1,000 years ago. The oceans were being restored. The air was being cleaned. Plants were growing again in soil that had been ash for centuries. Admiral visited the surface one quiet morning. She walked through a field of young trees, touching their leaves, feeling the soft ground beneath her feet. This was where Sol had stood, her home city, her mother's city. General found her there, standing alone among the trees. "The scouts report void activity at the rim," he said. "They will reach us within months." Nodded, she did not take her eyes from the trees. "Do you think we are ready?" "No," admitted. "But we are more ready than we would have been alone. The alliance is holding. The training is going well. We have a chance." "A chance," repeated. "That is all we have ever had, a chance." She knelt and touched the soil. Earth, real earth. The ground where her ancestors had walked for thousands of generations. She picked up a handful of dirt and let it fall through her fingers. "I made a promise," she said quietly. "When I was a child fleeing the flames, I promised I would come back. I promised I would make them pay for what they did." She looked up at. "I kept that promise, but I never imagined it would end like this, standing beside our old enemies facing a new one." "Life rarely goes as we imagine," said. Stood and brushed the dirt from her hands. "Let us hope the next chapter goes better than the last." The Void Collective arrived 3 months later. They emerged from dark space in numbers that made the alien commanders gasp. Thousands of ships, millions of drones. A machine army designed for one purpose, the extinction of organic life. The United Fleet met them at the edge of the galaxy. Human ships flew alongside cruisers. Fighters covered carriers. Species that had been enemies stood together against a common threat. Admiral commanded from the bridge of the Eternal Soul. Around her, officers from a dozen species worked together. Historian Myra stood at her side, serving as liaison to the alien forces. "All ships report ready," Myra said. Looked at the enemy fleet on her display. So many of them, so powerful, so endless. "We have faced worse," she said, and she meant it. The Great Purge had been worse. The long exile had been worse. The centuries of struggle against the void had been worse. Humanity had survived all of it. They would survive this too. All ships commanded, "Attack." The battle was brutal. Ships exploded on both sides. Warriors died by the thousands. The void fought with cold efficiency. The Alliance fought with desperate fury. But something remarkable happened. The different species began to work together naturally. Shields protected human assault ships. Human gravity weapons cleared paths for bombers. Medics saved lives regardless of species. In the fire of battle, old hatreds burned away. When the dust settled, the void had retreated. Not destroyed, but hurt, wounded, forced back. The Alliance had won their first battle. Admiral stood on the bridge, watching the enemy flee into the darkness. Beside her, General was wounded but alive. Doctor was treating injuries across the fleet. Historian Myra was coordinating rescue efforts. "They will return," said. "Yes," agreed, "but so will we, again and again until we win." She looked at the united fleet around her. Humans and aliens, former enemies, now brothers and sisters in arms. "They tried to end us," she said softly. "The aliens 1,000 years ago, the void today, they tried to extinguish humanity forever." She smiled, and for the first time in centuries it reached her eyes. "Instead, they made us eternal." On Earth, the trees continued to grow. Children played in parks where ashes had once covered everything. The sky was blue again. The water was clean. Life was returning to the planet that had birthed humanity so long ago. And in the stars, humans and aliens stood together, watching the darkness, ready for whatever came next. Not as conquerors, not as victims, but as guardians of a galaxy that was finally, truly united. The story of humanity was not over. It was just beginning again.